The words sliced through the Providence Municipal Courtroom without warning. "You work for my family." Amelia Rowan stood rigid at the defense table, face flushed, finger aimed at the bench. The air went still. Judge Frank Caprio didn't react. He set his pen down slowly and looked at her. Unmoved, Amelia doubled down. Her father was Senator Patrick Rowan. Power, she believed, flowed downhill. Elected officials, public servants, judges. To her, it all meant ownership. The gallery shifted. The clock froze. Caprio remained steady. In that courtroom, authority came from law, not lineage. Amelia was ordered to sit. She resisted, scoffed, then finally dropped into her chair, arms crossed, anger barely contained. At 10:45 a.m., Courtroom 2A came back to order. The charges were read: reckless driving, intimidation of a public officer, destruction of a citation, and failure to appear. Amelia rolled her eyes. Her attorney tried to end it the usual way: money, fast and clean. Caprio shut it down immediately. Payment was not resolution. Accountability was. The file told the longest story. 8 months earlier, Amelia had already been warned. Not cited, warned. Parking enforcement had been verbally harassed. A job was threatened. Her father's name had been used as leverage. Leniency had been granted anyway. First offense. Family request. Benefit of the doubt. She dismissed it as irrelevant. Old history. Caprio didn't. To him, it was a center of the case. A documented pattern. A repeated belief that rules bend for the well-connected. That consequences are optional. That public authority exists to be intimidated. Amelia leaned back, confident, defiant, insulated by privilege she believed still worked. But the courtroom had already shifted. This was no longer about a single incident. It was about entitlement meeting its limit, and for the first time, the system wasn't backing down. Amelia denied it instantly. She wasn't entitled. She was being targeted. In her version, a board officer had decided to make an example out of her. Judge Caprio closed the file and let the claim sit. The truth would surface soon enough. Amelia leaned toward her lawyer and said it anyway. Loud, careless, confident. Her father funded half the state. One call and the problem would vanish. Caprio didn't respond. He turned instead to the record. The evidence was extensive. Body cam footage. Security video from the cafe parking lot. Text messages sent minutes after the stop. A voicemail from a Senate aide. An email from a legislative office. A civilian witness statement. This was no routine citation. It was a trail. The stop itself began mid-morning near a crowded cafe. A white Mercedes moving nearly double the posted speed through a pedestrian zone. Lights activated. The car pulled in. Identification was partially refused. Status was invoked. Authority was challenged. When the citation was issued, it was torn apart and thrown back. A threat followed. Career, job, consequences. Minutes later, the intent became explicit. A text message sent at 10:14 a.m. confirmed retaliation was already in motion. The officer would lose her job. Her father was handling it. Private or not, it revealed purpose, not frustration. Leverage. Then came the moment that shifted the room. As the stop concluded, an elderly woman crossed the parking lot with a cane. The Mercedes restarted abruptly. Acceleration instead of caution. The car passed within feet. The woman recoiled to avoid impact. The vehicle never stopped. The security footage froze the room. Timestamp: 10:03 and 11 seconds a.m. A slow figure stepping forward. A sudden lurch of steel. A near miss. Body cam audio followed. An order to stop. A warning issued too late. A dismissal of the danger. The courtroom absorbed it in silence. Amelia's face stayed composed, but her hands tightened. The record was no longer about attitude or words. It was about risk. About power used without restraint. About how quickly intimidation turns into danger. Judge Caprio removed his glasses. The case had crossed a line. The officer confirmed it plainly. After the warning was shouted, the car never stopped. It exited the lot. The near collision was documented and added to the report. Nothing was exaggerated. Nothing was assumed. Then the witness came forward. Margaret Doyle moved slowly, carefully, supported by cane. 78 years old. Every step deliberate. She described hearing an engine rev and looking up just in time to see a white car rushing toward her. She tried to step back, nearly fell. The car didn't slow. The driver looked straight at her and kept going. The word shouted as it passed wasn't kind. The report matched her memory. Acceleration. Clearance missed by feet. A shout to move. No injuries, but visible distress. The room absorbed it in silence. The defendant dismissed it. Claimed exaggeration. Said the woman was slow. Said that wasn't her fault. Even her own attorney didn't look convinced. Then the paper trail appeared. Within hours of the incident, the Senate office made contact. A voicemail from the chief of staff. 2 emails to court administration. Requests for discretion. Requests for quiet resolution. A meeting. A timeline that spoke for itself. Incident first. Pressure second. It was framed as help. A father stepping in. But the difference was made clear. Support faces consequences. Influence tries to erase them. When the defendant invoked her father again, the courtroom froze. Seconds stretched. Power waited to see if it still worked. Instead, the record spoke. Her father had spent years in public office. He had sponsored legislation protecting elderly pedestrians. He praised teachers as the backbone of the community. The woman nearly struck fit every word of that praise. The defendant tried to separate it. Failed. Then said the part she couldn't take back. That if someone couldn't move fast enough, it wasn't her problem. That sentence changed everything. The silence afterward was heavy. Not shocked. Settled. Final. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The finding was simple. Reckless driving in a pedestrian zone. Threats against a public officer. Disregard for human safety. Attempted political interference. And a refusal, even now, to understand the harm caused. He opened the file again. The case was no longer about a traffic stop. It was about accountability, meeting privilege, and not backing down. The findings were clear. Government property destroyed. A scheduled hearing ignored. Then an attempt, quiet, calculated, to pressure the court into silence. The objection didn't land. The judge wasn't interested in arguments anymore. The base fine was set at $1,000. But money wasn't the point. It never was. The question was whether the defendant could learn what privilege had protected her from learning until now. That public office is not private power, that wealth does not equal immunity, and that every person affected by her choices mattered just as much as she did. A restorative program replaced a simple penalty, handwritten apologies. One to the officer, one to the elderly woman she nearly struck. 120 hours assisting elderly Rhode Islanders with mobility and independence. 2 public service announcements on accountability and public trust. A mandatory ethics course. And an 800 to 1,000 word reflection on responsibility. 10 weeks. No extensions, completed, and half the fine would be suspended. Fail, and every penalty would return heavier than before. New rules followed immediately. Any attempt by elected officials or their staff to influence pending cases would now be logged publicly. Any threat against court personnel would trigger escalation. Effective now. No exceptions. When court adjourned, the consequences didn't wait. Week 1 was brutal. The first apology was rejected within hours. Too evasive. Too careful. The second failed for the same reason. Apologizing for how someone felt wasn't accountability. The third draft took days. 11 rewrites. When it was finally accepted, it left her drained and unsettled. Service hours hit harder. She reported to the Elderly Independence Program on a cold morning and was handed a schedule, a badge, and no special treatment. Transportation coordination. Meal deliveries. Home safety checks. Listen more than you talk. Respect was expected, not requested. The people she met didn't care who her father was. They cared whether she showed up on time. The first client asked why she was there. The answer came out thin. A traffic violation. The response came sharper. If you don't want to be here, you're wasting time that doesn't belong to you. The timeline didn't lie. Week 1. Apology rejected. 9 hours logged. Week 2. Apology rejected again. 14 hours total. Week 3. Final apology approved. 22 hours. Week 4. PSA drafts begin. 35 hours. Week 5. First recording rejected. Redone. 51 hours, week 6. Apology to the elderly victim accepted. 68 hours, week 7. Ethics course completed. 84 hours, week 8. Second PSA approved. 103 hours, week 9. Reflection written. 117 hours, week 10. All requirements completed. 122 hours logged. Somewhere around week 4, something shifted. Not forgiveness. Not comfort. Understanding. The work didn't erase what happened. It forced her to face it, slowly, daily, without shortcuts. And for the first time, accountability wasn't something to escape, it was something to finish. Amelia met Robert during her service hours. He was 7 to 9, moved slowly with a walker, and reminded her of Mrs. Doyle. He had taught history for 4 decades and carried himself with quiet patience. When he asked why she was there, she didn't hide this time. She admitted she had almost hurt someone like him, and hadn't cared. Robert listened, then named it simply, a conscience, and warned her not to silence it. The PSAs broke her next. Her first script was defensive, wrapped in justification. It was rejected immediately. The program reminded her this wasn't about saving face. It was about protecting people. She rewrote it again and again until the excuses were gone. By week 6, she submitted the apology to Mrs. Doyle. 3 drafts. No legal language. No distancing. Just ownership. She admitted entitlement, carelessness, and harm. 2 weeks later, a handwritten reply arrived. Forgiveness, offered plainly, with one instruction: use the lesson well. Amelia kept the note with her every day. The ethics course stripped away the rest. Question after question forced her to confront privilege she'd never examined. She failed twice before passing. The answers didn't come easily anymore. The essay took the longest. 6 false starts. Deleted drafts. No shortcuts. When she finally finished, she wrote plainly that accountability meant consequences still apply even when your name usually protects you. That she used fear and power to threaten an officer. That she dismissed another person's safety because convenience mattered more. And that power without responsibility wasn't strength. It was cowardice pretending to be authority. She submitted it late on a Sunday night. Monday morning, confirmation came. Approved. Complete. A final note followed from Officer Cruz. She showed up. She did the work. That mattered. By April 2025, the impact extended beyond her case. The Providence Municipal Court implemented a public contact log. All communications from elected officials' offices became public record. An anti-influence firewall followed. Family pressure protocols were adopted statewide. At the follow-up hearing, Amelia returned to the same courtroom. This time there was no posture, no resistance. The record showed full compliance. Every requirement met. When asked what she learned, the answer came without hesitation. Her father's position didn't make her important. Her choices did. And the people she endangered mattered just as much as she did. Not in theory, but in reality. Caprio accepted the completion. The suspended fine was cleared. The record showed rehabilitation, not privilege. But the lesson wasn't finished. He reminded her that public service isn't inherited, and hiding behind a respected name while endangering others isn't service at all. It's betrayal. The case closed. The gavel fell. In the hallway, Amelia saw Mrs. Doyle sitting quietly on a bench. Their eyes met. No words. Just a small nod exchange between 2 people who understood something had shifted outside. The April air carried the smell of rain. Amelia checked her phone. 3 missed calls from her father. She didn't return them. Not yet. Instead, she walked to the bus stop. An older man with a cane stood nearby. When the bus arrived, she waited. She let him board first. A week later, Senator Rowan's office quietly changed its internal rules. No staff contact with courts for family matters. No special channels. No pressure. Just procedure. Mrs. Doyle framed Amelia's apology and hung it in her kitchen. Officer Cruz kept her note in her locker. And in a courtroom across Providence, Judge Frank Caprio opened the next file, adjusted his glasses, and continued as always. Unmoved by names, unmoved by power. Justice didn't pause. It didn't bend. It simply proceeded.